from Windsor.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. For months, my constituents have written letters, signed petitions, and even sent their hydro bills to the Premier and Minister of Energy calling for relief. Businesses in my community are struggling to keep the lights on. For Kebab and Curry, the lights may be off permanently if relief from skyrocketing hydro bills doesn't come soon. Other area businesses say that the cost of hydro is their #1 barrier to expansion, the #1 barrier to bringing more jobs into my community. Speaker, will the Premier take immediate action to reduce the cost of hydro so that businesses in Windsor can continue to operate and expand?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we already did. Mr. Speaker, we've brought forward the speech from the throne. They're going to see an 8% reduction, Mr. Speaker, on all of their bills, and that's for small businesses. And for those businesses that are actually a little bit bigger, Mr. Speaker, that actually use 1 megawatt of power, they will now qualify for the ICI program, Mr. Speaker, expanding and lowering their businesses, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that they can do it by up to 1/3. And it's not just us saying this, Mr. Speaker, it's the Ontario Chamber of Commerce who is applauding this decision that we brought forward, Mr. Speaker, because they are going to see more businesses now expanding their businesses, growing the jobs in our province, Mr. Speaker, and this is good news for many of them. There's many programs that we have also out there, Mr. Speaker, to help small businesses. And I look forward, Mr. Speaker, to talking about those programs when we get into the supplementary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Speaker. Again to the Premier. Every time someone in my riding opens the hydro bill, they're reminded how this Liberal government is failing them. They're making them choose between heating and eating, between paying their hydro bill and taking their medication. And come Christmas time, they'll be reminded when they open your bill, the one that you send to them because you're not providing support to them, and they have to explain to their children why they don't have gifts under the tree. With the winter upon us, life is only going to get more difficult for the hundreds of families in Windsor who are already struggling to keep the lights and heat on in their home. Community programs like Keep the Heat do all they can to help people pay their hydro bills, but with a 12% increase in applicants from last year, there simply isn't enough money to go around. Speaker, will the government act today, get energy costs under control, stop the sell-off of Hydro One, and ensure that hundreds of people in Windsor can heat their homes tomorrow?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, we do recognize and emphasize that families that are having difficulty, with paying their hydro bills, Mr. Speaker, and that's why we acted very quickly, when I took over as minister, to make sure that in the speech from the throne that we have an 8% reduction coming for all families, Mr. Speaker. That's very important. On top of the debt retirement charge that we already eliminated, plus the programs that we put in place, Mr. Speaker, like the Ontario Electricity Support Program, that helps families. We had 145,000 families sign up by the end of October. I know, Mr. Speaker, we're looking forward to getting the numbers for November, but there is room for more, and I do encourage them to contact their local utilities to find out if they qualify for this program, Mr. Speaker, because you know what? As a government, we're continuing to invest to make sure that we can help all families and all businesses right across the province. And I know in the first question we were talking about Windsor, Mr. Speaker. Windsor, you know what, up to 11,000 net new jobs year over year, Mr. Speaker, and that's due to the great work that we've been doing as this government. We're continuing to do that. We'll continue to invest and find